Yeah, the Legacy series, the kid there, Brandy, he was a terminally ill kid, and he was also very abused emotionally and physically by his parents, which made him a very shy, quiet, reserved kid. And kids like that, they've got a target on them that predators can smell a mile away. As a result, he was also being sexually abused by the teenage son of his regular babysitter. While this was going on, I mean, because he was sick and because his parents were so strict, he really didn't have any friends to speak of, and he really wasn't allowed to go outside and do things, or was too sick to go outside and do things. And this was in the early days of the internet, the early 90s. And he found this world online. He found on a public message board this group of teenage kids. See, back in the early 90s, you didn't go online to shop. You didn't go to Amazon. And it really appealed almost strictly to the outcasts or the fringe, kind of the precursors to the emos. And so that's why he went online. He didn't have friends to speak of in his 3D life. And he went and found some older teenagers who also didn't really have friends in their 3D lives, and they became friends. And because it's just kids talking amongst kids, the truth of what was going on in their lives ended up coming out in these conversations. So it was just these fascinating conversations with no adults to interfere or taint what they're going to say, create inhibitions. So their conversations were fascinating because of that. Now, and I'm going to give the spoiler, but that's okay, because the first line in the book, I give the spoiler. And there's a reason. He, at 14 years old, he died. And when he died, we found he had left behind, he had printed out and left behind, I presume, most of these conversations. I mean, I wasn't there for them, so I don't know how many he had, but I mean, there were tens of thousands of pages of these conversations between these kids. And nobody else wanted them. I knew he had been writing poetry online, and it was good poetry. And I took those, since no one else wanted them, mainly just to salvage his poetry. But then in reading the notes, I discovered what a goldmine these conversations were, because you are getting inside the minds of abused kids while they are being abused. I mean, literally, there are notes where he is talking to these friends and panicked about the fact his parents are going to be going out that evening and the babysitter's coming, and he suspects he's going to end up being abused. Or a note from right after they left where he's literally crying to them about what had just happened. I mean, it is these horrific events as they take place directly from the mind of the kid in question. You don't find that anywhere. So that's where they came from, is literally from the kid in question. But the reason I give the spoiler and that why it's the first thing said in the book is because when you know that this little kid died as a little kid, everything he says takes on a whole new meaning as you follow his correspondences. Anytime he talks about looking forward to graduating from high school, things he's going to do later in his life, and you know these things are not going to happen, it really breaks your heart in a way that it wouldn't if I saved that revelation until the end. It is taken from the writings of these kids, mainly his. But it was just this random selection of tens of thousands of notes back and forth between each other that they had done on these public boards. So first I had to try to figure out the order that they were supposed to be in. That took years. I mean, I probably worked on that, on just organizing these for 5 years. And then I found that there were a lot of gaps. There were references to things that we didn't have the basis for and things like that. So I have fictionalized some of it in order to fill in gaps and things like that. But it doesn't detract from the conversations. What it does is it makes them easier to follow, and they're completely in context with what these kids are saying had been discussed earlier. So therefore, it is, what I state is it's based on real events, because it is, but I also refer to it in a sense as what I would call realistic fiction, because certain elements have been extrapolated and reimagined a little bit, but not enough, not nearly enough that it, no longer comes across as an authentic work, because it is very authentic. It makes it easier. It enhances it rather than detracting.